Okay, so let's dive into one of the most, well, turbulent and fascinating narratives in all of ancient literature, the Book of Judges. This is a story that tracks the incredibly rapid, chaotic, and often violent decay of an entire nation.
The book ends with this haunting line, and it actually repeats it 4 times right at the end. It's basically the author's final diagnosis for a society that has gone into a complete moral and social collapse.
And that's really the core question the book is forcing us to ask. How did they get here? To really understand its powerful message, we need to look under the hood and figure out what engine is driving this story. An engine that, as we'll see, eventually just breaks down completely. So, in the beginning, right after the generation that knew Joshua passes away, the story falls into this really clear, repeating pattern. You can think of it as a formula for their survival, a kind of covenant relationship in action. Here's how it worked. It's this four-step cycle that just defines the whole era. First, the people sin. Then, they face oppression from their enemies. After that, they cry out for help. They repent. And finally, a deliverer, a judge, is sent to rescue them. This whole cycle is the core mechanic for the entire first half of the book. And for a while, the system actually worked. It produced some of the nation's most famous heroes. The system, for a time, did exactly what it was designed to do. Take Deborah, for example. She was a prophetess, a real national leader who guided the general Barak to this huge, decisive victory. The result? It's a textbook success story for this cycle. The enemy gets crushed, and the land has peace for 40 years. See? It's working. And this is where things start to get a little dark as we move forward in the book. A really disturbing trend starts to pop up. The cycle keeps repeating, sure, but it's like it's getting weaker each time. The deliverers themselves, they get more and more flawed, and their victories become, well, morally messy. A perfect example of this is Gideon. He's called a mighty man of valor, but honestly, the guy is full of doubt, always asking for signs. He wins this absolutely stunning, miraculous victory with just 300 men. But then what does he do? He creates this golden ephod. It's a priestly garment, and it becomes an idol that leads the entire nation right back into the very sin they were just rescued from.
And if you think that's bad, the decay gets way worse and way faster with his son, Abimelech. This guy is so ambitious that he murders all 70 of his half-brothers on a single stone just to clear his path to becoming king. And that brutal act, it sparks Israel's very first civil war. Now, the only brother who survives, Jotham, he escapes, climbs up a mountain, and literally shouts this fable down to the people who just crowned his murderous brother. It is one of the most brilliant political takedowns you will ever read. He tells this story about how the valuable trees, the olive, the fig, the vine, they all refuse to be king because they're busy, being productive. So who accepts the job? Only the useless, flammable bramble, who can't offer anything except threats. Jotham is basically screaming, "You rejected the good leaders and chose a murderer instead." And this decline in leadership is just so clear when you compare the first major judge, Deborah, to the last one, Samson. Deborah acts for the whole nation. Samson? He's a Nazirite, a guy who was supposed to be set apart, but he breaks every single one of his vows. His fights aren't about Israel, they're personal vendettas over women and bets. He's the ultimate anti-hero. So, now we get to the final section of the book, and it is horrifying. It's what happens when that whole cycle we talked about just shatters to pieces. There are no foreign enemies anymore, no judges coming to the rescue, just anarchy, with Israelites doing unimaginable things to each other. This final nosedive into chaos kicks off with a single horrific crime. A Levite and his concubine are staying in a town called Gibeah. That night, the men of the town surround the house and commit a brutal assault that leaves the woman dead on the doorstep by morning. The Levite, in a gruesome move, carves up her body and sends the pieces to all the tribes of Israel, demanding justice, and the other 11 tribes agree. But here's the kicker. The tribe of Benjamin refuses to hand over the guilty men. They choose to protect their own, and that decision triggers a full-blown civil war. The cost of this war is just staggering. On the very first day of battle, the unified tribes attack Benjamin, and 22,000 of their own soldiers are killed. So they regroup, and they attack again on the second day. The result? Pretty much the same. Another 18,000 men from the unified tribes are cut down. I mean, think about that. That's 40,000 men lost in 2 days fighting their own brothers. Finally, on the third day, using an ambush, they defeat the Benjamite army. Over 25,000 Benjamite soldiers are killed, and their cities are burned to the ground. An entire tribe is pushed to the very edge of extinction. But then, what's crazy is the victors start weeping, realizing they've almost wiped out one of their own, and their solution to provide wives for the 600 survivors is just as depraved as the crimes that started it all. They massacre the people of another Israelite town just to steal their daughters, and then they set up the kidnapping of young girls from a festival.
And so we end right back where we began, with this chilling summary. The whole sin and rescue cycle is a distant memory. Leadership has completely failed. The nation has devoured itself, all because everyone just did whatever they wanted.
The Book of Judges really serves as this timeless cautionary tale, doesn't it? It's a political and moral case study of a downward spiral from order into total anarchy. And it leaves us with a really crucial question for any generation, including our own. What holds us together when the center cannot hold?